Now, the Matric class of 2021 eagerly awaiting its national senior certificate results, which are set to be announced later today by the Basic Education Minister, Angie, the head mistress herself. Now, the final stretch has been marred by the pandemic, which disrupted schooling. Well, for more on this and for the latest, let's speak to Masego Rahlaga, my colleague, who's on the ground there, building up to this. Masego, about an hour ago or so, speaking to two gentlemen from NAPTOSA, Basil Manuel, and from the National Education Collaboration Trust, Mr. Sizwe Nxasana, who's on his way to where you are to join in this announcement. And they've got very interesting expectations of what should the minister be saying and what should come out of the Matric class of 2021. What's the sentiment they're like right now?
Well, you can imagine the nerves that the pupils themselves are going through right now, Bradan. Just a few hours before midnight, when they'll be able to access their Matric results. This is a very special Matric class, Bradan. And as you said in your intro quite correctly, they had, disruptions of schooling in the 2 years that are most important in their school lives. This is grade 11 and Matric. These are the marks that you use, Bradan, to apply for tertiary education. So you can imagine the kind of anxiety some of them must be going through, but it's a special breed. You might remember that Umalusi announced earlier this week that about 735,000 candidates, sat down for the National Senior Certificate this time around, and this is more than the year before, probably for obvious reasons. But before I make any speculations, let's speak to the spokesperson for the National Department of Education, Mr. Elijah Mhlanga. Thank you very much, sir, for your time here on eNCA. Now, like I said to my colleague Bradan, this is a very special class of 2021, going through very difficult times. I imagine whatever the results are, the department would be proud of them.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Masego. Absolutely. The class of 2021 were the class of grade 11 who did not complete their curriculum. So they came into 2021 already with a deficit. So there was a lot of work that needed to be done by the department, all provinces, districts and schools together working to ensure that they get the support that they need for them to be able to stand a good chance of passing this exam in 2021. So for that and many other reasons that the DG will unveil here during the technical briefing, this class, whatever they would have achieved, we need to applaud them.
And the fact that it was a lot more people who registered to sit down for the National Senior Certificate, can we attribute that to what happened the year before in 2020 with that hard lockdown?
Well, yeah, but it's also just an indication that the system is now starting to retain many more learners. Remember, for many years, I think perhaps the last time we spoke, we're talking about the number of grade 12 that actually get to write the final exam after starting school. So the numbers are starting to increase at the exit point, which means that we're able to retain them in the system. But it also means that even though we had a hard lockdown in 2020, interest was actually created for them to still come back to school. So they did not drop out in the numbers that we expected them to have. I mean, in 2020, we had 610,000 of them writing the exam on full-time basis. This time we had 733,000 who sat for the exam. We had to increase our capacity from markers to exam centers to invigilators because of the size. It's like 150,000 more people who came in. So we appreciate that. We hope that trend will remain in place.
And also there was that special part about 2021 Matric pupils, Elijah, with that debate having gone to the High Court this week, where the department had taken that decision not to, broadcast their marks, which was obviously, the poppy reason and other reasons that did make sense. We've seen Matric pupils commit suicide because they didn't appear on the paper, etc. Very interesting debates indeed, and your reaction as the department to the High Court deciding that, no, carry on as you were?
Yeah, you see, that's a tricky court case for many reasons. The first one is that if we had contested, it wouldn't be here today to release the result. There would have been a delay, and we didn't think that would be a good idea. So we thought, in the best interest of the learners, let's not oppose the matter. Whatever the court would say, would abide by it, and that's exactly what we've done. We sought to comply with the provisions in the Protection of Personal Information Act, which really says that we need to respect people's personal information and not publish it without consent. Well, there are exclusions, but we felt that as a department, we don't just process that on our own. We also need to share it with media houses, some of whom have not behaved well, by the way, in the past, because they have published results which had errors. We know of cases where learners did harm to themselves after finding in the papers that they had failed, when in fact they had passed. So it's such things that we also need to talk about, even as we abide by the court ruling. So we don't have a problem. We are going to study that judgment in detail. Already we have made commitments with other stakeholders that we are going to sit down and find a way forward on how we're going to process this information, because we know that there will be people who will say, please don't publish my results in the papers.
And while I have you, Mr. Mhlanga, that debate about a pass rate and a pass mark, we know that the person who had initially started this debate, Mmusi Maimane from One South Africa, had a briefing this morning. He's adamant that the minister should resign and everybody else is within the leadership of the DBE. I think this debate, maybe if you just explain, first of all, the difference between a pass rate and a pass mark, and your response to his statement saying that the leadership in the department, including the minister, have failed pupils in South Africa.
You see, Mmusi Maimane is a politician, so like all others who are trying to attract attention, is riding on the wave of the current debate generally on the basic education sector. Well, you choose to listen to him, but we don't believe that he has the in-depth knowledge and understanding of the sector to the extent that he can make the suggestions that he's making. Most of the things that he says are not researched. Some of the things that he says are misleading. He needs to take more time to study the sector, understand it better, so that he can make comments and utterances that are in line with what is actually taking place in the sector. It's a vast sector. It's easy for people to think that they understand it. Just because you went to school doesn't make you an expert. You still need to go into it. It's a specialized area. So we think that he needs to take more time and study that part. I don't know. I didn't see what he said, but from listening, he hasn't said anything new in the past month. All that he's doing is to find an opportunity. Whenever there's a discussion on education, he goes into it. The difference between a pass mark and a pass rate, the pass mark is a minimum pass requirement that is there in any education system. A pass rate is the aggregate performance of the cohort of a particular year. So there's been even confusion when it comes to those two terms, and there shouldn't be. Maybe we need to start by correcting the language that we use and say pass requirements, because when you do that, then the discussion is broader. You are not just looking at 50%, 40%, 30%. You are actually looking at the comprehensive requirements that a learner should be able to overcome for them to be considered to have passed and progressed.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Mr. Mhlanga. And of course, good luck to the department with that announcement. I know that Mhlanga already knows what the minister is going to be announcing today, but I will not ask him to tell me. I'll wait to find out along with yourselves and the rest of South Africa, Braden. And good luck to those matriculants who are at home eagerly waiting to find out what's going on with them.